Oh,
Hey guys, here we are with the Quiggin Out MMA podcast. This is episode 4. I have the great pleasure of being joined by two Brazilian Jiu Jitsu black belts, Professor Leonard Butch White and Professor Mike Geery, who are also
woo!
my professors. So, welcome to the show, guys. Thank you
Yay!
so much.
Thank
Hey, thanks a
you.
lot, Matt.
So, I brought you both on here just because, talking with Professor Mike, really got the idea to kind of talk about what jiu-jitsu means to you. So I kind of want to start with you, Professor Butch, and how you got started in jiu-jitsu and what it's done for your life and how it's changed your life.
Well, let me back it up a little bit. Before I've been in martial arts now since 1984. So I've actually it was the summer of the original Karate Kid is when I got involved. That's how I always remember. It was the summer of the Karate Kid, and I grew up in Ocala, Florida. I started taking karate more or less because I had nothing else to do. I was sitting on the couch, not doing anything. I mean, I played sports. I played soccer. I played baseball. But really, during the summer in Florida back in the 80s, there was nothing, not like it is today where you have travel sports. You play soccer all year round or you play baseball all year round. So really, everything was seasonal back then. And there was nothing to do in the summer other than, ride your bike around the neighborhood, more or less. So in order to kind of get me off the couch, my brother worked at Publix grocery store, and he saw an advertisement stuck on the wall for the summer special, $99 for 3 months of karate practice or at the karate school. And in Ocala at the time, there was more or less one karate school, and that was the Florida School of Jiu-Jitsu and Karate. And it was they taught Japanese Shorin Karate, and they taught Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. So I started in the kids class, and, make a long story short, I stuck with it. I mean, how a lot of the karate schools and a lot of martial arts schools do contracts and different things like that. My mother never did that. She paid month to month, and, 30s, coming up on 36 years later, I'm still in martial arts. How I got involved in jiu-jitsu, my wife and I met in college at the University of Central Florida, and I moved to Orlando in 92. Actually, everything has kind of a date to it. My starting in karate was the summer of the Karate Kid. Well, I moved to Orlando the August or the couple days right when Hurricane Andrew was coming through.
Oh, jeez.
So that's the 92 is when I moved to Orlando. Well, I kind of transferred karate schools, but different karate styles. But I got involved in karate down there, and I was through college. I took karate, and then when my wife and I we moved to Michigan, and when we moved back, I got involved with my same karate instructor that in Orlando. But when we started having kids, we wanted to be a little bit closer to her family, and she grew up in Palm Harbor. So we were driving past in Dunedin, and where Eduardo was at was right at the Dunedin Taekwondo Center. And I actually had seen Marcio Simmons and Sergio Pena had opened up their school in downtown Orlando, right across the street from East West Martial Arts Supply on Colonial Drive.
Yeah,
So I was like,
that's
what?
Matt Murphy's teacher, right?
Mike,
Sorry to interrupt, Butch. That's Matt
Yes.
Murphy's teacher,
Yeah.
Sergio Penas, right? Yeah.
yeah, Bill Murphy, Bill Murphy's. But that's back when both him and Marcio were teaching together down there in Orlando. So, and Mike can probably attest to this too, is, back years ago, you didn't just go train with another instructor. There was loyalty to your training. It's not like it is today where people jump from school to school, or the only time you really switched instructors per se was when you moved. That was it. Other than that, or unless they gave you the permission to do it. So,
Or you quit.
or you quit, but you didn't quit to go to another school. You kind of quit, and then you may get involved in martial arts after that. But it was a little bit more in depth than that, at least in my mind. But when my wife and I started having kids, we wanted to raise the kids closer to her family. And I'm like, listen, I said, if we moved over to Dunedin, which we moved to Dunedin, Clearwater area, I said, I'm taking jiu-jitsu. And Eduardo was there. And I already scoped out the situation. I already knew exactly where I was going. And that's kind of how I got involved with Eduardo. I started with Eduardo July 1st of 2002. And been in jiu-jitsu ever since. And back when, and I mean, Eduardo was a first degree black belt, first degree
No,
black
it was
belt.
no degree. He wasn't even a first yet.
And we had maybe, no, I know I have a picture with him that has a first degree on,
Does it?
on
Okay.
his belt. So he might have just made, but we had maybe 20
You said
students.
2002,
And actually,
right?
the best thing about it was
Mm-hmm.
we had a board where he had everybody's handwritten name, and when you paid your dues in the month, he kind of like put a little
Check it
red
off.
X, or if you didn't pay your dues, put a little red dot by your name.
Oh my
That's how,
God.
you know. So
So
we
we
had
walked
maybe,
in, we
yeah,
know
maybe
who
2
was late.
dozen.
We know who hadn't
Oh,
paid
yeah.
yet.
And it was like, you owe me money. You owe me money.
Ooh, so-and-so hasn't paid.
Yeah. So, but I've been in jiu-jitsu since 2002, pretty continuous. I mean, there were a couple times when I took a few months off here and there, but other than that, I've been good to go since that time.
And like you said, currently you're a one-stripe black belt.
Yes, I am. I got my black belt. Well, actually, both Mike and I, and I'll tell him, we actually just celebrated our 8 years as black belts.
Yep.
We got our black belt in 2012. And after the Pan Ams that year, we ended up getting our black belts, and we just actually had our anniversary. We got it in April here a couple weeks ago. But overall, I mean, jiu-jitsu, I mean, overall to me, what jiu-jitsu has done for my life is just, I mean, it gives me, I wouldn't say it gives me purpose, but it does. I enjoy going and training. For as bad as I get beat up sometimes, or as bad as I feel like when I get out of my car after training, like I can't move, I can't wait to get back and go the next day. And, if I'm away for it too long, my family is even like, you need to go to the gym. You need to go train. You need to get out of the house. And really, I kind of say it because really my family's not involved in it. This is truly my alter ego is my jiu-jitsu training and my martial arts training. It's like my own little world, and nobody else gets involved in it.
Well, that and when you put on your mariachi mask.
Well, that too.
I swear I thought he was going to bring it out right there.
Well, I
was wondering too. When he said alter ego, I'm like, here it comes.
I have a couple different alter egos. I can even do my Bernie Sanders impression if you want me to.
Oh God!
I could do. I have a lot of personas.
Well, and nobody's
But I
really
hope that
judging
answers your
you.
question.
Nobody's really judging you in jiu-jitsu.
Oh no. No, then they have to roll with me. So
This is true. We've been there. So, I mean, obviously that's quite the journey, and I feel like Professor Mike, yours is going to be quite similar, but different at the same time. So, talk about how you started and.
So it's very similar to Butch. I think Butch has more consistent years of training overall in martial arts than I do. My earliest memory of being interested in martial arts is watching old episodes of Kung Fu with David Carradine with my uncle.
Yes.
And I remember even as a little boy, I was drawn to it. I was drawn to the spiritual nature of it. I really thought, when I would watch it, the lessons of Buddhism that they were teaching in the show, that they were genuine lessons of Buddhism. Mm-hmm. To me, at an early age, I'm like, wow, these priests are really nice. They care about people. They care about everybody, but then they can kick ass too and do all these magical things.
Mm-hmm.
So I was always interested in martial arts. I started training with John and Cindy Ingram when I was like 7 or 8 years old for about 3 years, like 8 to 11, right around there. At the downtown Main Street in Newport Richey school, and then over at the Richey Rec Center.
Oh wow!
John and Cindy had, this was like in 78, 79, something like that. Really, really early.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a couple pictures of me wearing an orange belt with a little karate uniform and stuff like that. And then I got out of it. My parents couldn't afford it anymore. Who knows what happened, but I had always continued to train. And then I moved to St. Louis at 13. Still hadn't gotten involved in anything for a long time until about 18. I got involved in Aikido again. And then I started really falling in love with this martial art called Aikido. I was in and out of a couple of Aikido schools because, again, at 18, I didn't have a whole lot of money. Nobody was helping me. And then I finally got back to Aikido, like 21. And I was going to chiropractic school at the same time, or the beginnings of chiropractic school, and I just dove into it and fell in love with Aikido, fell in love with the Japanese culture and the movement and the weapons work. And, also kind of at the time drank a lot of the initial Aikido Kool-Aid back. But fortunately, as I came up in my martial arts, I had a couple of really good friends that we used to practice Japanese sword work together. Scott Schnur was a 20-year veteran of Wing Chun martial arts. And Scott would talk to me about things in Aikido, in movements, in the big circles that Aikido used versus the smaller circles that Wing Chun used. And it sort of opened my eyes to other martial arts. And then also during that time, you saw that was the beginning of the UFC. I remember one of my Aikido instructors telling me, like, man, there are these family in Brazil that, can beat anybody. Now, at the time, Steven Seagal was still pretty popular, and he was putting 2 or 3 students in every Aikido school across the world. And so we were like, oh, that's great, but Steven Seagal still kicks butt. And then you started hearing more and more and more. And I was in Aikido when we watched the very first UFC. And we were all like, whoa. And a funny story, I went down to Curitiba, Brazil, with my sensei at the time, Larry Reynosa, who was a senior student under Seagal. He was part of the Northern California Aikido Association. Seagal came back from Japan, I think, in '86, something like that. Mm-hmm. And he met Larry Reynosa at a big California meeting between a lot of high-ranking Aikido guys. And they got to talking, and this guy changed and went and studied under Seagal. So I practiced under that group for a long time, which was more intense Aikido than the normal Aikido that was out there. Mm-hmm. I know there's a lot of controversy that surrounds Steven Seagal, but his earlier days in Aikido, he was quite something in terms of his movement and his ability. Mm-hmm. And the Aikido that we practiced was pretty decent stuff. I mean, it was very straightforward. It was considered harder Aikido than other Aikido, though not as hard as the Aikido that Butch is studying now. They take it another step further.
Nihon Goshin Aikido.
Yep. But we went to Curitiba for a seminar, for a jiu-jitsu, for an Aikido seminar. Check this out. We did it in Curitiba at their main jiu-jitsu academy. Oh my God. I remember I've got a picture somewhere with my instructor Larry Reynosa standing with his arm around a cutout like guy in a kimono from Bad Boy Kimonos. Remember those?
Oh, yeah.
Really cool. And at the very last day, I remember Sensei was showing how to stop people from coming in a double leg and stuff like that. And there were a couple of the jiu-jitsu guys watching. They were being very respectful. I don't recall them like saying no and stuff, like they were watching. But as this is going on, I'm thinking to myself, I don't know that we want to be talking about this stuff. let's just focus on what we focus on. But then I had some life changes, and I left Aikido, moved to Florida, and I was going to get back into Aikido again because I was missing martial arts. I was missing it tremendously. And instead, I started doing some our sort of secret training with James Donor, with Ragnar, at our work. We started having a fight club at work. And I went back to Missouri. I was living here in Florida. I got a job that was traveling and stuff like that. So I just started training at different jiu-jitsu places, and then eventually found Eduardo's probably about February of 2003, I think. Mm-hmm. So Butch was in July, and because I remember, Butch, you were there already. And I started, and then Rich Plate started right around the same time. We started around the same time together at the Dunedin School. I'd actually gone to Eduardo's, I almost want to say a year and a half or 2 years before that, over at his house. But then I got a job traveling. I was doing IT work, and I would leave Monday morning on a flight, and I wouldn't be back till Friday night, and there was no time to train. So, yeah, I've got a couple of stories from training in Eduardo's garage. That was, that was interesting. Jenna, his wife, would come out, and she would make us watermelon juice after training and sell it to us for like $2. It was delicious. We'd be training our butts off in his garage. So, and then, so from that time on, I've been in jiu-jitsu.
I like how Butch started laughing at the garage concept.
No, actually, there were some pictures of Eduardo back in the garage days I've seen before. So yeah, he actually when he came over from Brazil, he had his place down on Park Boulevard.
Yep.
Mike.
Yep.
And then that didn't go so well, and then he ended up training people out of his garage down in Clearwater.
And at the time he was training out of his garage, he was bringing in some of his friends, like Helio Sanaka was there. Gordo, the inventor of the half guard, had brought in. I mean, he was bringing in a lot of these top-level Gracie Barra guys that people just really didn't know that well at all. Unfortunately, we weren't there at the time. I didn't get to experience him, but some of our higher-ranked students that we grew up with, they got to train with these legends of jiu-jitsu besides Eduardo.
And they had no clue.
I mean,
not really. I mean,
Eduardo never really did any seminars when we were in Dunedin because we didn't have any space. No. The place at Dunedin Taekwondo was just basically like a little room, more or less.
It was tiny. I want to say it was less than 1,000 square feet of space. Maybe 500.
Less than that. Yeah.
Yeah, 500 square feet, maybe 6.
I mean, the best thing about it was, when we trained, you had both doors open, and at night, the guy who lived behind there
in the backyard,
like a trailer in the backyard, he would be working on his car, and then he would be smoking. So all this exhaust smoke and cigarette smoke would come through the school, which would piss Eduardo off. And then you get guys training. I mean, there could only be like maybe 3, possibly 4 groups going at once.
Mm-hmm.
That's how small it was. And when we did guard pass, it was Eduardo training, and then whoever is top maybe 2 or 3 students, and then there was like maybe 5 or 6 of us lined up in the back.
Yeah.
So you could only have maximum maybe about 12 people in the school
comfortably
at that time.
We would stand on the wall and watch everybody, and make sure people weren't bumping into each other and stuff like that. I mean,
if you didn't talk though.
No. No, you couldn't talk.
Not when Eduardo
you start talking to Eduardo, being like, "Hey, there's a black belt on the floor. There's a black belt watching. You need to be watching, not talking."
Oh, it was great. I mean, we were grown adults paying money, and we got yelled at constantly. Half the time, he was started in Portuguese, so we didn't. And he didn't speak very good English at the time either.
Yeah, his accent has always been strong, but it was very strong back then. He
would show everything. He didn't talk a lot. He showed, and then he would get frustrated. because you
He was
didn't
like
understand
an
what the hell he was
abusive
saying.
stepfather that you loved anyway.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't know how to describe it. I mean, like he would yell at us, and then finally when we got to like purple belt, he didn't yell at us anymore. He didn't yell at us as much, and we got to watch the new white belts and blue belts get yelled at, and that was so relieving.
Oh yeah.
Oh, we would just giggle. We'd laugh. Ha ha, that kid's getting yelled at. He has no clue what he's in for. You know, those kind of. We would come in, and you could hear it in his voice. You'd know. You'd walk into class, and you'd hear him teaching. He's like, oh, someone's pissed him off. Here, it's going to be one of those days. And he would just murder us.
Oh, yeah. And then the only other thing was Eduardo was the best. If you pissed him off, as you got more experience, all he would do is he would yell at you and say, I don't teach you no more. I don't teach you more. You know, if you did something wrong, and then he would throw it back in your face. If he told you what to do and you didn't do it, and then you got somehow your opponent got the better of you, he would look at you and he would basically, you know, with the way his voice projected, I told you it would happen. I told you what happened. I told you what was going to happen. You didn't listen to me. I don't teach you no more.
And Eduardo had like,
you're like, oh,
like
man.
20 different sayings that he would say over the course of the years that we all knew. Now you pay. Now you pay for your stupidity. That was a good one. That was one of my all-time favorites.
Oh, yeah, it was just nonstop.
Do the right thing! Do the right thing! Like he couldn't tell us what to do. Do the right thing. I didn't teach you that shit.
You saw that on YouTube. Oh, he hated YouTube.
Oh, yeah. He didn't want us watching YouTube at all. Why you guys watch that shitty YouTube? There's just garbage on there. Blah, 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 blah. Just like your diets. Your diets are all terrible. You Americans, you all eat like shit.
And then if you made a smart comment, which I did to him one time, about say you would come in on a Saturday, and this was over Hercules. We would have 20 of us, 25 of us on the mats, and he would get in, and this is before training. He would get in. All right, to everybody on the back wall, let's talk about the food that we eat. And he was like, shit.
We'd sit there and like the 20 minutes of listening to him lecture us on our diet.
Oh, shit. No, let's not. And so he would get done. And one time I made a smart-ass remark. I said, so Eduardo, so that McDonald's hamburger that I had yesterday while I was at lunch, that doesn't help?
Oh,
I know why. I don't even know why I talk to you, Butch. You don't fucking listen to me. I don't fucking talk to you no more. That's what he would do.
Yep. He cursed at us all the time. What the fuck? Everyone was a viado. Everybody in the school was a viado. Viado is Portuguese for a derogatory way of saying someone's a homosexual. But we were all viados. Oh, viado, you fucking don't know what you're talking about. You're not doing it right.
Well, and it was a different time back then. Like,
yeah,
that wouldn't fly today. Not in the culture that jiu-jitsu has flourished in. I think would be the better thing. Butch has got something to say. I could see it.
Well, I think culture in general, just society and the way it is. I mean, I remember being in karate back in the '80s, and I knew of guys back in. There's Christian, my son. But I knew guys.
I knew Mike was going to be on the phone, so I had.
I knew guys back in the '80s that trained in the '70s, and like my karate instructor back in the '60s. Like, you guys, you guys have it easy now. So every generation has that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I remember being hit with a kendo stick in karate years ago. I mean,
which I had John Ingram back kicked me in the chest when I was like 8 years old.
Oh yeah.
We were walking out of the rec center one night, and I was bugging him probably something. I like, what would you do if someone came up behind you or something like that? And he literally back kicked me, and I fell on my ass on the concrete. Like, he's like, that's what I do. It was a different time.
No, it was. I was in a sparring match. I was a yellow belt, so if you can imagine it, our belts went white, yellow, orange. So one of the first belts, I was a yellow belt, and I was fighting, and one of my main instructors was this guy named Eric Harmon. He was an asshole, but anyway, still, I mean, just one of those guys is an asshole. But he was my main instructor. He taught the kids class, and he was probably maybe in his mid-20s then, and in good shape, and he was a little thicker, but he had one of the best spinning side kicks I have ever seen. He could time it, and he was just on. So he spinning side kicked me one day and threw me across the dojo. We worked out, and probably Mike, I don't know if you did, but I mean, because of Ishinru, but we had hardwood floors that we trained on. So, I mean, I hit the floor. So, after class, my parents never came in and watched. My mom still to this day has never seen me do martial arts. My father, he would watch through the window or through the car window and watch. So I get out, and I'm 13 years old, 12, 13 years old. He goes, why did that guy kick you that way? I said, well, Dad, he kicked. He goes, you should have kept your guard up. I said, how about you get in and you take the kick from him and you fight him? That didn't go over well either.
No.
So, I mean, but again, nowadays you make too much contact. It's just, we didn't wear, I mean.
You're being mean to my kid.
Yeah, you're being mean
to my kid. Oh, come on.
If we didn't have to wear sparring gear back then, we didn't wear sparring gear. The only time the only time we really had to wear sparring gear was when we went to tournaments. Other than that, our instructor's like, Sensei Frazier, he was like, are we wearing gear tonight or no? And he was a ball buster. He'd punch you straight in the balls and not even think twice about it.
Jeez.
I mean, groin shots were legal. It's falling side kicks. If you went up for a roundhouse, he'd kick you in the nuts.
When Butch and I were in jiu-jitsu, when Eduardo first came back, Eduardo first came to the States, and then he'd been here for 2 years on top of it. We heard stories about the first grand opening. He had like 30 guys that he put everyone in their guard and either swept them or broke his arm, arm barred them. And, if you went to Eduardo's school and you got injured and you quit, you were a pussy. I mean, it was just like the guy, we'd be like, oh, that guy got hurt. He never came back. We've seen a million people come back. He's like, oh, couldn't handle it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it was.
No, I mean, and I know I've
had guys puking out the back from training.
Yeah.
All the time people were getting sick, and someone would get their arms. It was just a rough training, but wonderful training.
I mean, when I say it in class, I mean, and I know I've said this before, and Matt, I don't know if you've been in class during it, but we were meat back then for the higher ranked belts, and what was maybe a brown belt, possibly a brown belt was the highest rank. Mike thinks Richard Travis was, but I don't know.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right. I think
purple belt was Mean Jeff Semenek had, I think, just maybe got his purple belt, because I know Joey Best, right when I started, he had just gotten his blue belt. And Joey Best is now the owner of Ybor City Jiu-Jitsu Club.
And one of the best jiu-jitsu practitioners in the area.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I remember Joey was my first training partner.
Yep.
And I already had almost 20 years of karate. And I go into Eduardo's, he's like, oh, and I was still training for my 3rd degree black belt test when I started jiu-jitsu. I was training in Orlando. I was a 2nd degree trainer for my 3rd degree, and commuted back and forth for work for some things. So he's like, he knew what I knew already, and he goes, Joey, you come over here, and he goes, you get this kid off of you, and I had to get Joey off me. It didn't go well. Joey, and I'm like, fuck, man. I mean, I'm almost a 3rd degree black belt in karate. I almost had 20 years of stand up. And I can't get a 130-pound guy off me.
And he was like 19 years old.
19, yeah. I mean,
jeez.
But still, 130 pounds, maybe soaking wet, because Joey's always been real skinny.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm thinking, man, and that's what we were. We were their training partners. You kept your mouth shut, and if you came back over a period of time, people warmed up to you a little bit. And that was over a period of time. And I'm not talking a week or two. I'm talking months. You had to stay for months. And you had to take a beating. If you cried or you...
It was like between 4 to 6 months, you had to be training. You know, like after the first couple months, you're like, oh, okay, this person's hanging out. And then if they made it past like the 4 to 6 month, you're like, okay, you know. And then once you see them get to blue and they stay, because we would have guys that quit at blue too. You know, once you see them stay a little bit after blue, then you're like, all right, this person's going to make it to purple. And if you make it to purple, you're more than likely going to stick it out the rest of the way.
Yeah.
So, but Butch talked about Joey Best. I had the same experience with Joey. Joey was my training partner, my very first class with Eduardo. And Joey had heard that because I think Eduardo asked me, and I told him I was a black belt in Aikido. So one of the ways Joey submitted me, I think the first way he submitted me was with a wrist lock. He wrist locked me from inside of his own guard to show me that, hey, we have wrist locks in jiu-jitsu too. I mean, not realizing Aikido is jiu-jitsu as well. I mean, you know, but that was the whole thing. And I remember thinking the same thing as Butch, rolling with this kid. He's 135 pounds, and I couldn't do anything against him. He had leverage on me like you couldn't believe. And it just, it was it. You know, like, wow, okay, I'm here. This is real.
And do you feel like that was a driving force to keep you to stay? Like that curiosity of going, how is he doing this? Because at that point, like you said, you guys had a lot of experience by that point.
Not for me. I like to train. I've always enjoyed training. And so it was a new martial art, and the newness I liked about it, but I had already been a black belt in the martial arts, and Butch was too, so it didn't have any mystery to us, like, as to why it didn't work. But it was just fascinating that it had so many things that you could do. You'd be in one position, then you'd move to another position, and then you'd move to another position. You know, once you started rolling, it really didn't end until the timer went off or you tapped out. And there were just so many things that you could do.
Yeah.
I think the guys, the group that we were in were a great group of people. They were a lot of fun. I remember laughing at the dojo almost all the time. You know, like we were always having a great fun. And you know, when you got better, everyone in the dojo was really excited for you. That same feeling of everybody being there for you, even though they didn't talk to you as much at the beginning, they still, you know, they were happy for your successes as well. And I don't know, it was a great place to be. You know, we were still at the very cutting edge of jiu-jitsu in the world. You know, it was the early days of Pride, the early days of the UFC still, and you know, we were there at the forefront when other people weren't doing it.
YouTube just came out, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. YouTube was just coming out, so everybody was making all their instructional type of videos. And I remember people coming into class and you know, being like, "Hey, we just saw this move," and Eduardo would freak out. "You don't know, just stop listening to that shit.
Dave Lutz.
You need to come to class and you have a black belt right here." He goes, "Who's teaching that shit? Some blue belt from Alaska or some blue belt from wherever?" He goes, "You know, you need to come to class. I teach you the real jiu-jitsu."
Yeah, but even then, some of the top guys were the guys that were sitting there studying the stuff off hours. Joey Best again, you know, like Joey has.
Well, you did it without Eduardo knowing.
Well, of course, right.
Well, he's gonna know now.
Joey supposedly has this repository of DVDs and videos that stretches back from the early 90s and even further. He supposedly has one of the most comprehensive videos of all the instructors of jiu-jitsu ever. Like, I would just love to see all the stuff Joey's got on tape somewhere.
Well, Joey, if you're listening, we'd love to see it.
And he hoards it. He hoards it. It's like gold.
I don't have tapes, but I sure as hell have enough magazines. So I have all my. After cleaning up the garage, I got like 4 or 5 bins of magazines, plus all the ones I have on bookshelves. I have karate magazines going back to like 1984.
Yep.
When I started Black Belt magazine.
Black Belt magazine, and all of a sudden when the Gracies showed up, things started changing a little bit. In Black Belt
it did.
magazine.
It was the funniest thing. Funniest thing.
So,
But no, I'll kind of go a little bit on what Mike was saying. I think what you're going to find a lot of times is guys, especially who are a little bit older and that trained in other martial arts and then came into jiu-jitsu, especially the time that we came in roughly, we were there just to train. And it was, if you got beat up, you got beat up. And that's the way it was. Nowadays, I don't know if it's that style. I mean, I still think a little bit, it's a little too friendly. You know, people are given stuff too quick. And I don't think that, I just think that's maybe the way society is. But, you know, we were there and you had to stick it out before, like I said before people really warmed up to you. Mm-hmm. And then when they did warm up to you, it wasn't them showing you something. It was them telling you, stop doing what you're doing wrong. Well, what am I doing wrong? Whatever you're doing wrong. Stop it. Yeah. So they didn't even give you anything more than that. Just stop doing what you're doing wrong. And you had to kind of piece things together until finally it was, okay, let me show you something. And I remember when Jeff Semenek did that. I mean, Jeff showed us different things, and then he would teach. One of the best things that ever happened sometimes was Eduardo would leave. He would go home, or he let somebody else teach class, and then it was open season for them to, oh, here's what I've been working on, or hey, let me show you this. And it was just a little bit different than what Eduardo was showing. Yeah. So then, which would freak him out sometimes too. Why you should? Crazy James Dorson was the best one for that. James, what? James, don't listen to what James is. Only James can do his stupid shit. Don't listen to James.
Mind you, this is the same guy. This is the same guy that got a gold medal in blue, purple, brown, and black at the Pan Ams every single time. Like he would do some unorthodox stuff, but it would work. I remember one time Eduardo sold to James. He's like, James, I just realized all the things you're doing the same thing as I am, but you're doing it in a different way. Like, ooh, that was so profound, but it was true.
But it was the Crazy James way. It was the Crazy James way. You don't know what he did. He just did it.
We had some amazing characters that we grew up with too. Like that was another thing. Like Butch is talking about Crazy James or Joey Best, Chris Reed, Mean Jeff. I mean, what kind of a nickname is Mean Jeff? That was his nickname, Mean Jeff.
Yeah.
Just amazing people. Lucas, Eduardo's student Lucas. What an unbelievable dude. Like just a monster. Freak of jiu-jitsu. Absolute freak of jiu-jitsu. So good.
Well, and it's funny that you mentioned the stop doing what you're doing wrong. Because I'll never forget the first time I got hurt. And I got trapped in an armbar. And you came over, you said, what did you do wrong? And I started going through every possibility of what I did wrong. And you were like, you got caught in it in the first place. Don't do that again. And it changed, it changes, okay. But it changed your mindset. And, with you guys being in the position where you're at with the, the dojo now, how important is for you to see that in the school and to see the knowledge that you guys have gained over, decades, and kind of pass that on to your students?
No, it's very important. I mean, it's the lifeblood of the dojo. That's what makes a dojo go. Is watching everybody grow. And Butch, we've been doing this for a long time. In our particular dojo, we've seen grow from, the very humble beginnings to where we have a pretty mature dojo for this area. And you walk in on any Wednesday night for guard passing or a Friday night or Sunday for the open mats, and it's just not going to be an easy walk in the park for people.
No.
Well, there's some really, really strong jiu-jitsu players that we have on the mats. Awesome people, so seeing everybody evolve and their game get better and better is wonderful. But also seeing, everybody grow together as a group, grow together as friends, grow together as a family. It's right now, especially, we're not supposed to talk about this, but we've been out of the dojo, for a long time. And people are just missing each other. You know, we miss the companionship. We miss our friendships. I miss going to the dojo every day and seeing people I love. You know, we're so important. I know we're so important, but people are so important to each other.
Yeah. And
it's such a wonderful thing to be a part of the jiu-jitsu because you're hanging out with your friends, but you're also trying to kill your friends. Your friends are trying to kill you. You know, and then you don't really get hurt. You get to tap out. You get to say uncle, you know, and then you get to do it again.
Yeah, but, you know, I mean, I totally agree with what Mike is saying. The best thing about jiu-jitsu is that it's a challenging activity that, yes, it's just as much physically challenging, but damn it, it's mental too.
Oh my God.
It's mental to go through that match. And not to sound a little hokey, but it does transcend just the mat. Because
Absolutely.
you can use those challenging moments. And you know, going back to my Joey Best story, the most daunting feeling in the world is having somebody on you when they are not getting off. And you've done everything you possibly can think of and physically can think of to try to get them off you, and they're just not going. So now, how does that work? Okay, so you know that's where what we do on the mats can help you in everyday life. It can help you, you know, when you're going through those challenging times, thinking, man, I was under that so and so guy. He weighs 225 pounds, and I'm 190. You know, he can squash me like a bug. But I was somehow able to figure out a way out of it. I can figure my way out of this too. So, I mean, that to me, that's been the most challenging thing with this is
Sure.
it doesn't let my mind.
It's very mentally
up a
frustrating,
little bit.
especially in the beginning. You know, like you have a particular move that you keep messing up over and over and over and over again. I can't tell you how many thousands of times Butch and I would be caught in side control against me and Jeff. And you look at his face, you know, shaking like that. We'd get our arm in one position and you knew it was over. You knew that the inevitable was coming and there really wasn't much you could do about it. You know, what happened? Well, I got there in the first place, back to your point. You know, you don't even realize at the time what you're doing wrong because your body doesn't understand it. Then all of a sudden you realize, oh, I'm doing this. And, you know, but that takes months and months of training to get through.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating.
It takes months and months of somebody telling you, do you know how I got you? You did this. And having to, like you said, train your body, and not only train your body, train your mind. Because it is human chess, and it's been referred to that over the years, and there's no doubting that whatsoever. But you're right, it's playing somebody who's that much more superior, who's already got it set up so that he knows your next 5 moves before you do.
Yeah, but they're also too the best feeling in the world, and Matt, you know, hopefully you'll get there someday. And I mean, I'm a little bit there, but when I go into a match now, unless I have something specific that I'm working on, I go into a match now, and you know, Mike and I rolled, you know, a little while ago. I don't think, okay, I'm going to do this. It's let me just kind of see how this all materializes, because a lot of variables can go in, where a lot of beginners think, well, I got to pull guard, or I need to do this, or I need to do that. Which is great at the beginning to think like that. But it's also great as you get more experience to where then things just start materirizing.
But
you don't have to think.
You have to go through that. You have to go through those first stages, Butch, right? Like, you know, you have to. You think, oh, I have to pull guard, because that's all you know. You don't know the rest that you can fit in. And like you said, we've been in 17 years. That's what happens. We'll start off something, and Butch and I will play, and we'll see where it goes. And we're not necessarily having a particular agenda. Now, there's different times when, of course, you train different agendas. I remember Eduardo going through training with us, and he'd be like, I'm going to get arm bars on all the kids in the class and stuff like that we had to focus on. But for the most part now, it's like Butch says, we just kind of start and feel, and the direction of the movement takes us to what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And that's, people talk about as, you get up in rank, the higher ranks move slower. And it's not a matter of moving slower, it's just more so waiting for the other person to make a mistake, waiting for them to get careless and impatient. And I noticed that rolling with both of you, because you're not looking at the person you're rolling with at all. You're looking over here, you're looking over there. You're not thinking, like you said, that white belt mentality, and we'll just call it white belt mentality. It can be carried to almost any belt. But that mentality of I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this, whereas, Butch, like you said, now you're getting to the point where okay, I'm just going to see how this plays out.
Well, look at those videos that I put up about Eduardo today, and you watch how he moves, and he's not rushing to anything. He gets to a position, and then he'll wait for a while. He'll get to a good position, and he'll just hang out. Okay, I'm going to hang out here and see how this person moves, and I'll follow it over, and I'll follow with the deep half guard sweep or something like that. You just don't rush it, and of course, and in terms of your rank, every rank has the experience that you have to go through it. When you're a white belt, you don't even know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Then when you're a blue belt, you kind of have an idea of what you don't know. You're like, wow, I don't know anything. This guy knows so much more, and that guy knows so much more. When you get to purple, then all of a sudden you have a little bit of idea of what to do. Mm-hmm. Brown, I think, is purple. Brown is more defense-oriented, and adjusting your attacks. And then, of course, black is just all of it. You're doing everything out there. Mm-hmm. When you get to a purple, you can really begin to start to attack and attack and attack, and that leads into brown. When you're making a gourmet meal, if you take it out too soon, the meal's not done. It's the same way with somebody grappling. They need to go through that period of white belt, whatever length that period is, so they understand they don't know crap. They just don't know. You need to go through blue belt. You need to get your ass kicked at blue belt over and over again, but then have some minor victories too and work your way up to purple belt. Then at purple belt, all of a sudden it's not so much like you're not coming home frowning as much anymore. Yeah. Like, oh my God, I got my ass kicked, and it
also
becomes,
purple belt, you're figuring out what your style is.
Yeah.
I mean, white belt, you really don't have a style because you're just trying to figure out how in the hell you survive. Mm-hmm. Blue belt, you're kind of doing the same because now the white belts want to kill you because you're the next. What did Eduardo always call us? We're the fish in the pond.
The minnows. He would say the minnows eat the next one up.
Yeah. So I mean, the white belts want to you want to be a blue belt. So the way Eduardo told us that if you want it to be a blue belt, you beat the blue belts.
Yep.
You have to hang with the blue belts. Mm-hmm. So then that's how we did it more or less, and then you finally hit purple belt. And you're like, oh, okay. And then you start figuring out the difference, what you like to do, and then you kind of start formulating your style or your game after what exactly you like to do. I mean, I like to close guard, and I close my guard, and I wouldn't let you out of my damn guard to save my life. I don't do it as much anymore, but I will pull guard and not let you out.
And that's the craziest part about it is, like you said, it's a process, and it's not for, I don't want to say the weak, but it's not for those without that drive to stick it out. Like you said, there's a lot of people. There's too many people who quit at white. There's fewer people that quit at blue, fewer people that quit at purple, brown, etc. Like, I feel like I couldn't imagine quitting at brown, knowing I was that close. Like that to me,
no.
You put all that work into it.
So. I don't know if anybody that I can think off the top of my head that's quit at brown belt. Mm-hmm. If not for a physical reason, or sometimes they just have a disagreement with the instructor and they leave.
Yeah, I know one. We both know one that quit at brown belt for that reason. Mm. And that's unfortunate too, because then you leave at brown belt, you go to a different academy, it doesn't feel the same, and the next thing you know, the guy quit jiu-jitsu. And it's unfortunate because, once you get black belt, and you've been a black belt for a while, not once you get black belt, but once you continue to train, I think that's really what it comes down to, is just staying in it brings all these experiences that the only way that you're going to lose those is if you quit.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how strong you are physically. It doesn't matter how weak you are physically. It matters of whether or not you're going to quit.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't quit, you will make it. You will absolutely make it. Butch and I have seen people that have had handicaps, major handicaps, that just wouldn't quit and are still training today.
Mm-hmm.
That's the secret.
I think the one of the quotes out there, one of the famous marketing ploys of our former association that Mike and I were associated with is jiu-jitsu for everyone. And personally, I don't like it because I don't think jiu-jitsu is for everybody. I think you got to be a certain type of person. It is for everyone, okay? It is for everyone.
But not for anyone.
Within that, but I think you have to be a certain type of person to be able to do this art for the demanding physicality of it, for the mental side of it. No, it's not for everybody. I mean, my wife, she would never do this. She has no interest in jiu-jitsu. My kids have no interest in jiu-jitsu. They do something else. So you got to have a certain mindset. And the people that are in jiu-jitsu are a unique breed. We are a unique breed. Because how many people do you know that like, wrestling around on the ground with people, more or less, is what it comes down to. It's a very physically intimate activity. So you have to have that certain mindset to be able to do it. It is for certain people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mike, what do you think?
I don't know. It's hard, I'm completely enmeshed in jiu-jitsu. It's a big part of who I am. I can't see not being in jiu-jitsu until I pass. I wish that everyone could do it. I agree with you, Butch. I think it's not for everyone. I wish everyone could do it and experience the gifts that you get from it. I've seen my son grow up in it. I've been teaching kids for 30 years, and I've watched these kids grow up in it and have it there as a tool to use for confidence. And I don't know. I'm happy. I'm happy to be a part of it. It always presents you with challenges at every level. We're young men for a while training in it. It's one thing, and then we get to be older men and we're training in it. It's a different focus now. But at the end, we're still down there grinding with everybody else. Sweating and bleeding and pushing through on guard passing night or whatever. It's just it's a wonderful hobby. It's not. I mean, to say it's a hobby is does it disservice. It's a wonderful way of life.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you, Mike. And we've had this discussion too. I'll probably die on the mats with you, so unless somebody kills me on the mats beforehand.
So, if we're lucky, yeah. I can't. It would be something.
And I mean, I train. I mean, obviously everybody knows it, but I mean, I do train in another martial art as well, and I'll train in that, and I'll always be in jiu-jitsu. I don't foresee that going anywhere. Me ever stopping training. I mean, like Mike just said, I mean, it's a different way we train, and it's going to have to be a different way we train as we get older, because you can't train like you're 20 when you're 50, or you can't train like you're 30 when you're 70, So it's our training will have to be modified, but we're probably 10 times better than the next guy because we're out on the mats doing something.
Oh yeah,
we're out on we're training.
Well, and you also
that's a brotherhood that we share with people from all around the world too. Is that almost every time I meet someone from jiu-jitsu or that does jiu-jitsu or whatever, it's like, hey, you do jiu-jitsu? Oh, I do too. Who's your teacher? Blah, blah, blah. It's a positive thing. Every now and then you get someone that ruffles your feathers the wrong way. But I think for the most part, I look at Victor, who's over in Germany. Prior to the pandemic, every other weekend Victor was traveling around to a different city in Europe. as a black belt, going into these dojos, meeting these wonderful people, these wonderful jiu-jitsu people, making new friends all over the world. I mean, that's fantastic.
You can't say that with a lot.
No, not at all.
I tell you, one of the first things I typically do is now is whenever we plan a family vacation, it's one of the first things I ask my wife is I need at least a day of training.
Yep.
And it's like, and I find out where we're going, and I find out where there's a school. I did it when we went to Boone, North Carolina. I trained up at Boondocks up there in Boone, North Carolina. When we went up to New York,
that's part of the master school, right? Did you go to Bobby's school?
No.
Oh, I thought, because he's in North Carolina.
Yeah, no, this is out by Appalachian State.
So you also trained with Ron Gentile up in New York?
Ron Gentile up in New York, so wherever you go, there's a jiu-jitsu school close enough you can hopefully get some training in, if time affords you. But just being at the school, we get guests coming in all the time, from out of state, or hey, my parents live down the road, I'm just visiting, It's great when people come to visit. You
usually don't have to pay premium either.
Do what?
I said if you go to the eclectic ones and not like the ones that are associated with the big club names, you probably pay a more reasonable mat fee too.
Yeah, true. Or not at all.
Right.
Well, and I love that because, like you said, planning, jiu-jitsu doesn't have to stay in one spot. It goes with you, it carries with you. And like you said, nowadays, a lot more people are cross-training. They're going to other gyms. And I know, it's a big family environment. And, at the end of the day, we're all training the same thing. We're all learning the same trade. If we want to go, break it down that easily. But it's really just, take it with you. I love what you're doing, and I probably will do that the next time I go on a trip, Butch. So.
and Matt, when you just said that, I think the difference between jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and every other martial art, and I've trained in two different styles of karate, taekwondo, is you can't jump from one karate style and say, well, I'm on vacation. Hey, I'm going to that karate school down there. Typically, you have to stay within your own style.
Yeah.
And, you can't do that in other arts. In jiu-jitsu, it doesn't matter whether you're Gracie Baja Alliance, you're Newport Richie Jiu-Jitsu, you're this, you're that. Oh, there's the jiu-jitsu school. Okay, you go in, you talk to them. Hey, what's the first question? You got a uniform? That's the first thing. You want to train? That's what they said. Tell you.
Where's your
no,
gi?
I don't have a uniform.
Yeah, where's your gi?
Where's your gi? Where's your gi? Where's your gi? Oh, I only have shorts. Okay, that's no problem. You train in shorts then.
Yeah.
You can get out on the mats and you can train with anybody, regardless of affiliation or style of jiu-jitsu. Because
it's that, and don't be a dick.
Yeah.
When you go to another school, don't be if you go in and you're a nice person, you have a great time, they'll welcome you back a million times. We have people that come back to the academy every year because we've been open-armed and we're very welcoming. But you go to an academy and you think your shit doesn't stink and you're a dick to people. You're either going to get broken or you're never going to be invited back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and on the subject of stories, from what I understand, Mike has a pretty good one about a certain individual. And we're going to see
we were talking about this the other night, Butch, about Mr. Agazam.
Oh, God. You're going to go there. Okay.
No, I was telling Matt, like, it would be so awesome to have a podcast just devoted to all the stories I have of him. Because you
spent a lot of time with him over the years. I didn't spend that much time with AJ over the years.
I
always got along with him. Now one of the references I always say is people are like, I said, do you ever watch UFC or do you ever watch fighting? And I'm like, oh yeah. I said, well, have you ever seen AJ Agazarm? And they're like, oh yeah, I've seen him, or I know who he is, especially if you're from this area. I said, yeah, I trained with him back when he was a kid, high school kid. So,
he hated the gi when he first came to the academy.
Oh, yeah.
He hated the gi. He had black hair.
He was a wrestler.
He was a wrestler. He hated the gi. Absolutely couldn't stand it. And that's one of he loves the gi. He's excellent at the gi. He's phenomenal at the gi. Yeah, I remember when he was a blue belt, he won the world. He won the worlds as a blue belt, and he won the Pan Ams as a blue belt that year. I mean, he is a phenomenal jiu-jitsu athlete. No question about it. Mm-hmm. Training with AJ, we would train with AJ, and he could go and go and go. And, when I first started training with him, I was a lot younger. And I had a decent amount of cardio and stuff and strength. But then because of his wrestling and because of his conditioning, he would always amp it up. And then he'd wait till you break. And then once you broke and he felt you physically break, then it was all over. He just steamrolled you.
And he had that mentality of he didn't care whether he got choked unconscious. He was not giving up. He was not going to give you the satisfaction of giving up.
His arm bars. People would put him in an arm bar. I remember Kevin Peterson talking about this too. Like AJ would not tap to an arm bar. His arm would be bowed, so it's like bowed, and he would just not tap, and he'd get out all the time. Crazy.
Well, and it's
So
I don't know. I just have a horrible arm bending in my head there.
Oh, listen. Yeah, there were several times where I was watching AJ get armbarred, and I'm like, oh my God, it's gonna break. And how in the hell he got out, I have no idea. He just, got out.
Well, and the last thing I want to say is, if there's one thing you could tell somebody who, is just getting into jiu-jitsu or, kind of fell off that wagon, like what's that one thing you could tell them to kind of bring them back in and, help them understand or, get back into it?
Come back. Just come back. Whatever training makes you a better person. If you have an uncomfortable situation at the dojo you're in, you had a falling out with your instructor, okay, whatever, go to a different academy and train. I don't know. There's so many things to say. There will be so many benefits that you will have that are positive in your life. Eduardo used to say to us, he never saw anybody that quit jiu-jitsu that continued to progress really positive in life. Like when they stopped jiu-jitsu, they never, they were doing the same thing. They never got better in life. Everybody he said that he's seen stay in jiu-jitsu, their life's gotten better. Their life's gotten better. Their life's gotten better. You're around good people all the time. You're training. You're honing your mistakes, both mentally and physically. It's a positive thing. It's a really, really good thing. And I'll tell you something else too. Put your kids in it. They should have it mandated across the country that kids should train. Mm-hmm. I tell you what, the kids that train jiu-jitsu and have been with it over years, and again, Butch has seen them as well. Amazing. Yeah. Amazing what it does for the kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
No,
you've seen it with Eli. You've seen it with your own nephew.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Different kid.
Yeah.
And he's good. Keep in mind, to anybody who doesn't know, my nephew's 4, so he'll be 5.
He's a rebellion. He will choke your ass out. Seriously, I watch Eli fight, and I'm like, I have to be careful that he doesn't hurt some of the kids he goes with. You ever seen a match between him and Caleb and Damien? The three of those three are all around the same age and the same height together. Damien, Caleb, and Eli. And oh my God, I'm sure your sister's got video. You should watch it. It is so technical. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I can't wait to start teaching them again. I miss them. All right, Butch, your turn. Butch. It's your turn, Butch. What would you say to somebody that make them stay in jiu-jitsu? Sorry.
I would probably just say, yeah. I mean, I agree with you, Mike. Exactly. I mean, come on back. I mean, if it's a personal thing with an instructor, that the reason you left, there's a lot of schools now. I mean, when I started, there was Eduardo and Rob Kahn, one on each side of the bay.
No. When you started, there was Eduardo.
Okay.
That was
and then Rob Kahn shortly after that. Then
2 years.
Wow.
Was he 2 years after that?
He didn't come until Hercules, because remember that.
Really?
Yeah, because remember the Travis and his dad were training with us over in Hercules. And
but that wasn't. Yeah,
remember that?
I remember Travis and his dad.
Yeah. Nagel. Yeah, they were training with Eduardo, and they brought Rob in town, and then they started the Gracie Tampa. But Eduardo was here in 2000.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, but still, I mean, even back then there was only sparse amount of people. Now you have jiu-jitsu schools everywhere. Look at what it is in Tampa Bay.
Mm-hmm.
So find a school that fits your personality, what you want. It was funny because I was talking to a guy and I haven't talked to him since, but he was looking at training again, and he trained with Mike and I back years and years ago. And I actually know there's a guy I trained with at Aikido that knows him through the police department, but he got injured at another school. Huh?
Who's that, Steve?
Yeah. Yeah, and I hadn't talked to him. He's got other personal things going on in his life, but I talked to him and I said, "Come back." He goes, "Well, I'm scared. Not scared, but I'm hesitant to come back because I don't want to have another injury. My wife has basically said no more injuries. He's got to get up and go to work in the morning, just like all of us do." So, I said, "Listen, you come train with us. Come train with me. You know me." He goes, "I know you." He goes, "I'll train with you." I said, "I'll tell you who to train with, who to stay away from, just out of sheer, something like that." So go to a school that you feel comfortable with that fits your personal needs. But train. Just train. It'll help you. It'll help you just with everyday life, clear your mind, if anything. And it's a good way to get out of the house and do something constructive. So you're not cooped up all the time in your house or whatever. And if you don't like other sports, like I don't like personally running, I don't like lifting weights. This is my running and lifting weights in one,
He likes lifting 12-ounce cans.
Well, usually my Corona. So
he broke the rule.
Coronavirus.
He broke the rule.
I know. Well, he did. He already did.
He didn't mention it by name. I'm going to get you on a technicality there.
What's going on now? Yeah, it's you have just on the individual day-to-day basis of training, that hour to hour and a half that you spend in training, you forget about the rest of your life. You forget about the rest of the problems that you have in your life, especially when you're in the sparring time. When you're focusing on technique, you're hopefully your mind isn't at home, still trapped in the argument that you had with your girlfriend or your spouse or whatever. You forgot your crappy day at work. You're there focusing on the technique. Then you go into the drilling section and the guard passing, and then you go into fighting. Let me tell you, if you're in the middle of a fight, someone's kicking your butt, you're not thinking about work at all.
Nope.
Not at all. You're just thinking about how you survive.
And you're driving home going, "Man, that was good," or like, I learned this, or I did that. You're not thinking about that. But like you said, the argument's gone. The bad day is gone.
What I think a lot of people do, and my wife's cousin's husband just started training with us. Actually, before all this started, he came to a couple classes, and he, after this is all over, I actually was talking to his wife yesterday, and she's like, "Yeah, he can't wait to get back." I said, "Yeah, just like all of us."
Mm-hmm.
But I told him, I said, "Listen," I said, "even with the family, and I think this gets." I'm at 10% battery, so hopefully I don't lose you guys. But anyway, but I think this gets lost on a lot of people is you could be there for your wife, you can be there for your kids, you can be there for, your family, but you still need you time. you still need to do what's best for you.
Absolutely.
And you need time to be, whether you need time to be a guy, you need time to be a girl, you need time to get away from all those other distractions in life and just do something that's best for you. I think that's lost on a little bit nowadays, where with this whole we all got to be together all the time. No, you know what? I need my time too. I need my time to do what I like to do, and I think that for me, it's kept me sane. I like coming to the school. I like talking to everybody. If I don't get in any training, that's fine. At least I got to talk to everybody that night. But typically I usually just train and talk to people as I go by and make fun of people. So
sounds about right. Well, on that note, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I know.
No, Mike gets the last word.
Oh, okay.
No. I don't want the last word. Butch can get the last word. I'm perfectly fine with that. Matt, thank you so much. We had an awesome time talking with you.
Yes, thank you.
Being able to see you still again, and I can't wait till this is all over. We're back to our Wednesday nights and grinding it out like we always do.
Absolutely. So thank you again, Professor Butch, Leonard White, Professor Mike
Woo!
Geery, Newport Richie Jiu-Jitsu Academy. Thank you, guys.
See you soon, brother. Take care.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Thanks.